Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan. My very special guest is Joe Vogel, a candidate for delegate in my district, District 17. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
It's good to be here, and I'm excited to kibitz, and my grandmother would be really proud that I know what that means.
Excellent. So why don't we start, since you talked about your grandma, why don't you talk about your family history? Because you come from an immigrant family, as many residents do in Montgomery County.
Yeah. So my great-grandparents, a few generations back, they fled Europe from all over Europe, and they sought refuge in Uruguay in Latin America. And that's where my grandparents were born. That's where my parents were born. That's where I was born. And then when I was 3 years old, my parents immigrated to the United States with me and my younger brother. And I grew up right here in Rockville. So from the age of 3, I've called this place home.
So tell me what it was like growing up in Rockville. How did you learn English? Did you experience discrimination as an immigrant family?
So luckily, no discrimination. I grew up in Rollins Park, right in the heart of Rockville, and I always look back to those days as some of the most formative years of my life. And that I grew up in a neighborhood where every other family around our block, they were also immigrants. So I actually went back there a few days ago, and I was walking around with some volunteers. We were knocking doors in that neighborhood, and I was pointing out how in the house next to us was an Indian family that had immigrated from New Zealand a few years after we did. Around the corner was a family from Israel. Across the street was a family from Brazil. So I grew up in this, it was the United Nations of children, right? Yeah. And that we would all play together on the streets, ride our bikes together, play soccer, all different languages, all different cultures, but we came together as one community. And I think that, that to me is just so symbolic of who we are here as a community, as a state, and what we should be as a country. It was just the most incredible upbringing.
So you grew up going to Jewish day school, and I met you in high school when you were involved, and I was on staff of BBYO. Why don't you talk about growing up Jewish?
Yeah, no. So I was able to go. I was lucky to go to the Jewish day school and just met such an incredible community there, and was involved in BBYO. Faith has always been so important to me, and Jewish values, especially, right? The idea of tikkun olam, our responsibility to help repair the world. That was one of the most foundational values that I got both at JDS and through BBYO. And I also got exposed to, great public servants like you, specifically through BBYO. And I actually remember the day that I found out that you're running for state senate. And at the time, hopefully we'll get more into this in a bit, but at the time, I wasn't really involved to a great extent in politics yet, but I had been involved in community service through school and through BBYO. And so it really opened so many opportunities to me. And really, I look back on those days, and like I said, the values that were instilled in me are still the values that are guiding me today.
Absolutely. So the next question I had was getting involved in politics, and you were one of the best volunteers on my 2014 campaign. Talk about what you saw, what you learned, and why you decided to stay involved in politics.
Yeah, so I used to want to be a doctor. So around the time that I got involved in your campaign, I was also looking at pre-med college programs. Wow. And looking to do, I was an athletic trainer at school doing all sorts of medical things. I also came to realize that I'm afraid of blood and needles, so I don't think that would have been the right career path for me. But this idea of, I think the reason that I wanted to be a doctor is because I like solving problems and I like helping people. And I saw through being involved in 2014, I met a lot of people who were solving problems and helping people in politics. And I also came to recognize a lot of important problems that our state, our community was grappling with at the time, and how politics could play a role, public service could play a role in solving some of those problems. And then, so that really sparked my interest getting involved in your campaign. And then I went off to college.
Yep.
And watched kind of the rise of Trump and watched him win a primary. And, I wasn't naive. I knew that people like that existed, that hate existed. But I really thought it was an aberration because it was so to the contrary of what my upbringing had been like in this community. And I mentioned that earlier, growing up in this incredibly diverse community where everyone was accepted, everyone belonged. We can always be better, but we're great in that respect. And then I watched this man who, like I said, was an affront to all of that, was an affront to all my values and an affront to everything that I knew about what it meant to be an American. And so I decided that, I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines.
Yep.
I was going to get involved in that race. So I packed up my suitcases, packed up my college dorm room, and got a job on the Hillary Clinton campaign, traveled all across the country on her campaign. I was part of her advance team.
Yep.
And then, to me, and this goes a bit outside your question, but the day that she lost, I was in New York City, and I took a bus down back to Bethesda the day after, just absolutely devastated. And those were some incredibly dark days for all of us. And I slept and slept and slept for a couple of days, caught up on my sleep.
Yes.
And then I had one thing that was already on my schedule for 5 days after the election. It was my citizenship ceremony. I had been going through the citizenship process during the campaign, and then took my oath in Baltimore at a USIS office up there 5 days after the election, 5 days after Donald Trump had been elected. And for me, that was another moment where I was back in this community that had instilled in me these values, that had given me so much.
Yes.
And recognizing just how much was at stake. And that really inspired me to stay involved and get further involved in public service and in politics. And it led us here today.
Yay. So let's talk. You worked for U.S. Senator Cory Booker for a couple of years. Why don't you talk about why you chose to work for Senator Booker and what you admire most about him? He's a pretty extraordinary leader.
Yeah, no. So I met the senator my first week of college. He was there doing a lecture series with Senator Claire McCaskill. I was like, oh, this guy's great. I had no idea that 4 years later I'd be working for him, right? So funny how those things work out.
Yeah.
But to me, his campaign represented so much more than running for president. Mm-hmm. It was a campaign to restore hope in our country and restore the sense of faith that people had been missing during the 4 years of Donald Trump.
Yes.
And restore a sense of unity that I think has been, unfortunately, on the decline in our country. And so I just was so inspired by him, but even more inspired as we went all across the country, and I traveled to, from coast to coast with him. And I saw him, whether it was in churches or school gymnasiums or union halls, just deliver this. People would be crying in the audience. And they would leave saying, this is the first time in 4 years that I felt hopeful in our future. And
Right.
to me, that was just such an important task for us to be undertaking as a campaign. So, it was, I worked for him for 2 years. It was 2 of the greatest years of my life. And he's amazing. He did an event with us a few months ago.
Well, let's not get ahead of it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, totally good. You decided to go to Harvard to go get a master's degree at the Kennedy School. Why don't you talk about why you thought that credential was important?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was just talking about. As we were traveling across the country, I would hear, and even when I was involved in this campaign and all the work that I've done in this community, I was exposed to so many policy problems, right? And I can think during the Booker campaign, there are a few moments that just really stand out. This young woman that came up to him at an event in New Hampshire and was just, crying about the opioid crisis in her community and how there just aren't enough hospital beds. We see some of that in Maryland as well. Young folks that would come up scared to go to school because their school could be the next on a long list of school shootings, or the families that he met with in a little front yard in Nevada, in Las Vegas, who were talking about how our immigration laws are seriously hurting them. Some of them are, afraid to go to school as well, or afraid to seek discipline on others at school because of the risk that could pose for them. So just all the pain that people were feeling, we could see it, and he could see it, and that's why his campaign was all about turning common pain into common purpose. And I said, I think that I thought during that campaign that I wanted to go through an academic experience that was really focused on using data, on using evidence to solve some of these problems that people were feeling, the pain that people were feeling, to solve some of the problems that people were experiencing.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. So tell us briefly about the nonprofit that you started.
Yeah. So during COVID, I was reading an article one day about how, and we know this to be true now, but this was at the very beginning, just how disruptive COVID was going to be for students, and how students were going to face serious burdens and long-term costs due to the pandemic. And so I said, I have this group of friends and classmates from high school and college and from work who I think we could bring together and create some platform online to offer free virtual tutoring specifically to the children of essential workers. At the time, I recognized that there were a lot of parents who are going to be able to stay at home and help their children out, help their children navigate virtual learning. But we had frontline workers, nurses, and doctors, and grocery store workers, and people that just weren't going to be able to provide that support to their children. So we were going to step up and try to do our part.
It's great. Totally great. So for those who don't know the history, who are watching this, I decided that I thought that Gaithersburg and Rockville could benefit from a new legislator, a new leader. And I made my list of criteria, and I came up with 6 constituents that I thought could be good candidates, and made 6 phone calls, had 3 outdoor freezing cold COVID dinners in December of 2020. And you said yes to the concept of running. What made you say yes? And what made you decide it was the right time for you to become a candidate for the House of Delegates?
Yeah, no, and this was something that I'd been thinking about for a while, about serving the community. I felt like this was very similar to what motivated me to start the nonprofit. It was very similar to what motivated me to get involved in politics in the first place. It's the similar energy, the similar idea that motivated me to pack up my bags in college and go work on a presidential campaign, and what motivated me to go to school, to go to grad school and get a degree in public policy. I think we all have a responsibility to serve, and I feel like I have had, this community has just given me, from the moment that I immigrated here with my family when I was 3 years old, has just given me incredible opportunities. And I want this to be a community. I want this to be a state where every single person has access to those opportunities. And I want to give back to this community that's given me so much. So I've always looked for opportunities to serve. And I've been thinking that this would be an important next step, right? To bring the voices of our community, to be an active listener, to show up, to be present, and to work together with people to solve some of the problems that our community and our state is facing in Annapolis. So, I had to think about it a little bit, because I wanted to make sure that I was the right person for the job. But when I said yes, when I decided to do it, it just started what I'm sure we'll talk about now, just an incredible journey of listening to people, meeting people, and really bringing people together to create what I just think has been such an exciting campaign.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of you and so thrilled. Let's talk about you as a candidate. So we've already established that you are an immigrant, that you're bilingual. Obviously, you are young, and you just turned 25 a few months ago, and that surprises a lot of people. How do you answer when people say, aren't you a little young to be running for office? Or do you have enough life experience yet?
Well, yes. So let me just say, first, on the campaign side, we're building what I consider to be a multi-generational campaign. We are bringing people together, young and old. We have young fellows out there knocking on doors, and we have experienced, seasoned endorsers who are helping us navigate politics, right? And helping me learn. I'll say this, I recognize that I do not know everything, and anyone claiming to say that they know everything is probably lying to you. So I know I have a lot to learn, and I acknowledge that at the very beginning when I kicked off this campaign. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going all across the district, knocking on doors, having coffee meetings, listening to people, doing my homework, reading, to really become as prepared as possible, not just for this campaign, but to take on this job. And I think, I'll let the endorsements speak for themselves, but I think they're a testament to the fact that people see me and see me as someone that could be an effective representative
No
in
question.
Annapolis.
No
And
question.
then I'll just say, in terms of the representation, right? I think that there is an underrepresentation of our generation in Annapolis, and there are a lot of people in Annapolis with a range of different professional and lived experiences. But there are a few people my age that know what it's like to be sitting in a classroom and hear a noise coming from outside the hallway and think about where you would hide in the case of a school shooting. There are a few people that know what it's like to be a young person grappling with rising costs. There are a few people that know what it's like to look ahead and look to, they say we have 10, 11, 12 years before the most catastrophic climate consequences, we really start experiencing them. Well, by then I'm still going to be a young person, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to have a whole life ahead of me. So that is a perspective that I think we need, and a perspective that I think I'll bring.
Absolutely. So many more questions. You started door knocking a while ago. Tell us the best story of someone that you met while meeting voters at their doors in Gaithersburg and Rockville.
Oh my goodness. So I have to say, so we knock with volunteers. So we have volunteers that are knocking, and I go out knocking as well. And one day I get a phone call from one of my volunteers. We were knocking in the same neighborhood, and they say, hey, I knocked on a door. They had a great conversation with me, but they want to talk to you. And I said, okay, text me the address. And I ran over. And I spend 5-10 minutes at some doors. This turned into a 1-hour conversation where we sat on their couch. It was long, I know. But it was just one of those conversations where I was like, this person has great ideas.
Wow.
They have a great understanding of the challenges that they're facing. And he taught me a lot, and I think I convinced him of a lot. And he left and he said, you were in my vote. And
Wow.
that to me was just so fulfilling. I can't spend an hour at every single door.
No.
I know that. I know that. But those are the conversations that to me are it's what it's all about, right?
Yes.
I wish I could spend an hour at every door.
Right. Fundraising is a challenge for a lot of candidates, and yet you have thrived and you've put together a great grassroots fundraising group of donors and stuff. Why don't you talk about what that's been like for you?
Yeah, look, when I kicked off this campaign, I made a commitment, which was I was only going to be supported by individual grassroots, no PACs, no corporations, no Annapolis lobbyists, that is a personal preference. And so I knew that I was going to have to rely on grassroots supporters to step up. I did not expect that we would have close to 1,000 individual donors that have chipped in at joevogel.org/donate.
Yes.
And they're doing it because I think they believe not just in me, but in the vision of our campaign and what we can achieve together. I have to look at the numbers to give you an exact percentage. But last I checked, over 60% of our contributions were of less than $25. So these are educators and students. They're activists, people that are stepping up to say, we support you, we want you to win. And so we're putting money behind you. And that to me is just an incredible, incredible feeling to know that we have such a grassroots campaign.
Fantastic. What is the biggest surprise you've learned in District 17? What didn't you expect as you've gotten to know the district?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm learning something new every single day. I think that what has made me surprised and also has made me happy is that there are a lot of people who agree on solutions, right? There's a lot of disagreement. There are people that have their own different perspectives. But when you frame things a certain way, I think policies and solutions resonate with people. And something that I'm excited about doing is there are groups that seem to disagree and seem to be on different pages. I'm hoping to start bringing people together, right? And start bringing people around a table and having these conversations, because what has surprised me is that even people who I think I will disagree with on every single issue, there is one issue or two issues on which we agree. So my hope is that we can actually turn that into solutions and bring people together to get that done.
Amen. That sounds great. Let's see. You are really good at social media and have a great infrastructure of followers. And why don't you offer a tip to someone who's watching, a way that they can get more engagement than they have right now?
I think it's just to be as authentic as possible. I think that so often, and we notice this on our campaign, the content that doesn't do well is the overly designed, overly crafted content that looks like an ad, right? People don't want to see that. They want to see you. They want to see you. During in the last couple of years, some of the things that I've done on social media. Sometimes I'll cook and I'll go live on Instagram. I'll do an Instagram story and I'll let people join me for the cooking. Or if I'm knocking on doors, I'll post an Instagram story updating folks and telling them what I'm hearing. I think that's what really resonates. People want to see what your life looks like behind the scenes, not just the curated content.
Yes. Let's talk about your endorsements, because you are impressing everyone. So in addition to elected officials like me, and the mayor of Gaithersburg and council members and former council members and all that, you've also just earned the teachers endorsement and Human Rights Campaign Fund. And why don't you just talk about some of the organizations and why they're meaningful to you?
Look, I said this too when the educators endorsed. I would not be where I am if it hadn't been for all the educators that invested in me over the course of my life. And I know that's the case for so many other people in our community, for everyone in our community, right? And so I recently had a conversation with my first grade teacher, and I'll keep this short, right? But she sent me an email saying how proud she was of me and how she'd seen that I was running for office, and she sent a $100 contribution to our campaign, which to me was just so exciting. And I said, no, this is that I am here because of you, right? Because you invested in me, you made me who I am today. So having the support of the Educators Association just means the absolute world. I have the endorsement of the Victory Fund, which is an organization devoted to electing LGBTQ leaders across the country. And we know that there is a serious, if I remember the number correctly, we have to elect about 3,000 more LGBTQ elected officials across the country for us to be on par with the national population of LGBTQ folks. So there's a lot of work to do there in terms of representation, and we see how important that is. Luckily in Maryland, we're going in the right direction, right. But across the country, there is an attack right now on LGBTQ people, especially LGBTQ youth. So yes. Representation is just so important. And then, like you mentioned, countless elected officials and activists that have stepped up to support our campaign, from the mayor of Gaithersburg, Judd Ashman, Councilmember Ryan Spiegel, Lisa Henderson, Neil Harris, former Councilmember Mike Sesma, former Mayor of Rockville, Steve Van Grack, and so many others. It means the absolute world to have the support of everyone. Yeah.
And me.
And Senator Cheryl Kagan.
Really quick before we shift to our Fast Five. If you are elected, when you are elected to be one of our 3 delegates, there's 6 committees in the House. Talk about how you think about a committee assignment and where you think might be a good fit for you.
Look, right now, more than anything, I'm focused on the next 94 days because we are going to give to win this election. And then after that, I'm going to spend some time, obviously working to win the general as well, but also building relationships with other delegates and senators and activists from across the state, so that when I get there in January of next year, when I get to Annapolis, I am ready to go. I've thought about the committee assignments just because I know how important they are to the legislative process. I've advocated for bills, so I've seen just how important the committee structure is, the committee process is. It'd be an honor to serve on any of them. I think appropriations would give me the opportunity to really bring home the money to make the investments that we need in our infrastructure and our policy programs back home. I think there's a lot that can be done in economic matters, and obviously energy and environment and transportation, which is chaired by hopefully a fellow District 17 delegate,
Barve,
who's just been doing incredible work, and I'm there's the issue of climate and the environment is just so critical, as are the issues of transit and transportation. So a
Yep.
lot of work to be done in all three of those committees.
There you go. Okay. Well, Joe Vogel, candidate for District 17 delegate, fast five.
Let's do it.
5 quick questions to let folks get to know a little more about you. First, what was your favorite subject in school when you were growing up?
I would have to say history, for sure. World history specifically, but history.
Okay. Question 2, what's a TV show that you have binge watched recently that you'd recommend to others?
Oh my goodness. So I am the biggest fan of Madam Secretary.
Oh,
And it is just such a good show. And I was just rewatching it today, but I'm also, a big Parks and Rec fan.
okay, good. Question 3, how do you stay healthy and fit?
So I try to go to the gym. I'm usually the last person there. I try, like 11 p.m. is usually my gym time. So if you ever at the Lifetime Fitness at 11 p.m., make sure to say hi.
There you go. And how often?
I try to go once a day, but it's more like once every 2 days.
Okay.
It's busy. It's a busy time.
You think? Yeah. Question 4, what is your favorite genre of music? And do you have an anthem, a song that lifts you up and inspires you?
I would have to say, I think it's like a folky pop, like Hand on the Heart, Abbott Brothers. I'm a really big fan of this. This is Ben Rector, Grayson Chance. So a very unique style of music. And yeah, there's a song actually by Logic, who is a Gaithersburg native, called Every Day. And it just goes over and over again. I work hard every day. So
Nice.
I listen to that on repeat.
That's your good theme. I like it. And the 5th question, Joe Vogel, what is your hidden secret superpower? What's a skill or talent you've got, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
Wow. So I would have to say it is, wow, this is a really tough one. Can you tell me yours? Just give me an example.
Well, one of mine is that I'm a ferocious proofreader. I find the typo that everyone else misses. It drives people crazy, but they also appreciate it as long as they haven't gone to print yet.
I would have to say that it is. So I'm thinking of like The Incredibles and the little guy that's with a very quick runner. I'm a fast runner. I don't really know how that affects my day-to-day life, but I am a surprisingly fast runner. Sometimes I won't tell my friends, and then I'll race them and they'll be like, what? I'll have to give you that one, but that is a tough question. I'm gonna have to think more about it.
Dang, I'd come up with like a million more things than that.
Okay. We'll do this again sometime.
I'll tell you what I would say for you.
Okay.
I think you're kind. I think you're patient and you're kind, and you indulge folks that a lot of people would find frustrating or challenging, and you engage and listen. And I think you're kind of extraordinary about that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. Well, Joe Vogel, thank you for being a candidate. Thank you for being an extraordinary person. And thank you for taking time to kibitz. I look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail and in person very, very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course. Stay safe.